Hi, Brian Mitchell, New England Wine Academy, and for this segment I wanted to go over the WSET Level 3 Award in Wine Exam. I want to talk about exactly what's involved in the exam and what you should expect when you are coming to sit for the exam. So let's break it down a little bit real quick here. Unit 1 is the theory paper, Unit 2 is the tasting paper, okay? And that's it. So there's two sections. You're going to have 2.5 hours to complete this exam, and on the page, on the screen here, it says Unit 1 theory paper, sort of implying that that's first, but in fact the tasting paper comes first. We do the 30-minute tasting paper. You'll come in, taste 2 wines, fill out your exam forms, and then the clock will expire at 30 minutes. We reset a little bit, put down the theory paper, and you'll have 2 hours to complete that. Some people might finish in a little bit less time than 2 hours, and they are allowed to leave the exam room at that point. Which is why we do the theory paper second, because it's most people will use the full 2 hours to make sure that their exams are complete, but occasionally there are folks who finish a little bit early and they're allowed to leave in that case. Okay, so that's why we do that. You have to pass each unit to receive an overall pass, and we'll go over kind of the scoring at the bottom part of this presentation here. So let's look at each one of these. So the theory paper, like I said, takes 2 hours. It's composed of 2 sections really. There's a 50 multiple choice question section. Pretty straightforward. You will have as much time as you need. You have an answer sheet that you fill in the bubbles that corresponds. It's a Scantron type of situation, and you go through that. My suggestion is to really make sure that you read the questions. Sometimes questions are posed slightly, to throw a little twist into them. So please make sure that you read the question carefully, understand what the question is asking, and then go for the appropriate answer for you. And then you'll have 4 short written answer questions in this theory paper. Now, there are some examples of both the multiple choice and short written answer questions in the course specification. So, and I believe this is available and should be available in your course study material. If you don't, please let me know. We can certainly get you a copy of that. But what you'll notice is in the short answer questions, these questions, there's 4 of them, are each worth 25 marks, but they're divided up into different parts. So you might have an overall theme that's asking a primary type of question, but then maybe some subsequent questions that will have, partial scoring within those 25 points to add up to 25 total points within that. So you want to make sure that you're really looking at each section of those questions, taking an appropriate amount of time to answer them. You don't want to run out of time. Go through them relatively quickly and efficiently as possible, but make sure that you are focusing on the places, if you are running short on time, where you might be able to gain the most points and the most marks on your answers. Okay. One of the things one of the reasons why I think this is designed this way is to really test your theoretical knowledge across a spectrum of material and be able to draw that together to be able to answer a written paragraph or whatever the answer involves, drawing on each aspect of your study material and being able to cover a broad base of that. Okay, you need a mark of 55% in each of these sections to pass the theory. So you can't just score really, really well on one part, like maybe the short written answer questions, but kind of bomb the multiple choice and hope to pass. You actually have to pass both of those subsections within your theory paper. All right. Moving on, we have the tasting paper, which I said, of course, comes first. And this involves blind tasting of 2 wines. And again, you have to have a 55 on each part, on each wine to pass. Okay. And we'll go through what that looks like here. So the 2 wines, you're going to describe each wine under the following headings, and you'll either receive 20 or 21 marks. The little difference between the 20 and 21 is 20 is for white wines and 21 is for red wines, and the red wines will have the tannin in the structure. I'm going to go through that sheet in just a second. So your appearance will give you 2 marks. Nose, you get 7 marks with a maximum of 5 for aroma characteristics. Your palate section, which is really your structure components, this gets either 9 or 10 marks, whether it's a red or a white wine. And you only get a maximum of 3 marks for flavor characteristics. This is because most of the weighting in this section is done towards the structural components of the wine. and they want to make sure that you're ticking that off. And we've also kind of covered a lot of those flavor and aroma characteristics in the nose. So in theoretical terms, it might be just a repeat on that. And then you'll get some conclusions. So let's take a look at what exactly the breakdown is of how to score and what you're going to end up with on scores. So your aggregate mark of 80 and above with no individual examination paper below 65, you get a pass with distinction. Aggregate mark of 65 to 79, and you'll pass with merit. Aggregate mark of 55 to 64, you pass. An aggregate mark between 45 and 54 is technically a fail, and anything below 44 is really an unclassified fail. So we don't really look at that. One thing though that I do want to show you is the paper for the tasting section and what it really looks like, because a lot of people find this helpful to kind of see what it's all about and how it's broken down. So this is what you're going to see, this sheet here, and I'm going to go through each of these sections real quick just to kind of emphasize what's really kind of look for here. So on the white wine, and as I said below, on the red wine section, you'll add a point into your structure or palate section. But for white wines and red wines, it starts out with the same. Appearance. Now, all of your answers really should be derived from this document, which should be very familiar for you right now. This is your SAT. And on our appearance, we're really focusing on intensity and color. Okay? You'll notice that there's 2 marks that are given for appearance. Technically, we have 3 lines here, 4 really actually with other observations, but the ones that we really want to focus on are intensity and color. Most people will write clear and then write pale, ruby, or whatever the wine might be. You only get scored on intensity and color for these 2 marks here. So you really want to make sure that you're putting both your intensity level and your color level. One suggestion that I have when doing this paper is always write the heading. Sure, you can write pale, ruby, but I might really suggest, just because it becomes practice and it becomes routine for you to actually answer each of the parts that are asked for, is when you're writing your answer, write intensity level, medium, color, ruby. Okay? And that carries forward into our next sections where you have intensity level in nose might be medium, aroma characteristics are, you write those out, and then development, youthful, developing, etc. And that comes in our nose section, which is next. And you'll notice that there are 7 marks total available here, of which 5 marks are coming from your aroma descriptors, which are going to be on the second page of your SAT and are all of the things that you've been practicing in your tastings. So, we do have 3 sections to this, flavor characteristics, aroma characteristics. We have primary aroma and flavors, we have secondary aroma and flavors, and then we have tertiary aroma and flavors. And one of the things that's really important is to understand and determine from a early point in your exam writing process here, whether or not a wine is relatively simple and only has primary flavors, is a little bit more complex perhaps and has some primary and secondary flavors, or is maybe a developed wine or wine that has seen some development, some time, aging, etc. And that's going to be displaying some primary, secondary, and tertiary. I really suggest that when you answer this, that you write primary flavors of, and then pick anything out of the primary flavor category. Write secondary flavors of, exhibiting those flavor characteristics, or aroma characteristics in this section. And then tertiary flavors of, and then list whatever tertiary flavors you think might be here. I think it just ingrains into you that you are answering each of these sections and you do it completely. The last part of the nose that I really want to focus on is, a lot of people miss this, is the development. They kind of forget this. It's a mark that you're leaving behind if you don't write it down, and you also have to write it down in the correct section. Development is on the nose, so we need to write youthful or developing, fully developed, or past in the nose box on the exam paper. Okay, if you write it in palate, you might be correct, but I can't score you because it is not in the nose section. Okay, so please make sure you write your development level in the nose section, and that's a total of 7 marks there. Moving forward on palate, as I said earlier, we have structural components here of sweetness, acidity, tannin, and alcohol, the body, the flavor intensity, and the finish are the primary ones that you're going to be dealing with. And these are going to be the majority of the points that are scored here. And again, this is the white wine sheet, so it has 9 marks on it. If this was the red wine sheet, it would have 10 marks because you add tannin into there for the difference, okay? And then there's only 3 marks left for your flavor characteristics. And the reason we do this is because most of that is already scored here above. We're more concerned about your ability to assess from a structural point of view what's going on in the wine on the palate section. So make sure that you detail off each one of these. And again, sweetness, dry, acidity, medium, tannin, medium, alcohol, high, body, etc. You want to make sure you kind of list those so that you're not forgetting any of them. Put them in here, score your points. It's going to be great. Okay. Then we move on to quality assessment and readiness for drinking. And we've covered this in the course material, but you really want to make sure that you are going through each of the parts of the SAT that is involved in the quality level and the readiness for drinking, and make sure that you are writing the correct one down. We've talked about Blick and Blicka, balance, length, intensity, complexity. You want to really make sure that you are thinking about whether or not that wine is balanced, whether or not it has good length, or if it's very short, what the intensity level is, the complexity and concentration of the wine. You want to really kind of put these all together. And if you can tick off a bunch of boxes about quality that is fulfilling the balance, length, and intensity and concentration boxes, then certainly you want to make sure that you're assessing that wine as something that is very good to maybe even outstanding. If you can't put a check next to a few of these things, it's got great flavor, but the acid is really low, or maybe it's super sweet, but it's really kind of weird, sweet, etc. Whatever the box that you can't tick off that's pulling it down a little bit, you want to make sure that you correlate that to something that's maybe it's just a good wine, it's good drinking wine, maybe acceptable, or even poor, if that's what you feel. So let's make sure that you have a good understanding of what that means and how that translates. And then that goes into the assessment of quality box here for 1 mark. And then the next one is the readiness for drinking. Can drink now but has potential for aging, or drink now but not really suitable for further aging. Once in a while we'll have wines that are too young or maybe too old, but generally speaking, most of your answers are going to come from 2 in the middle here. And really what the difference is that the can drink now but has potential for aging. This is probably going to be for wines that you've already made the assessment on, youthful or developing. But we have youthful wines such as, simple Pinot Grigios that you can drink now, but probably, even though they're youthful and stuff, probably aren't going to benefit from really being aged further. So you might want to put that assessment as not suitable for aging, or further aging. Young, fresh, fruit-forward style wines probably going to go here. Where if you have a little bit more complexity, you have some tannin structure, wines that you think can really develop, you're going to want to pick here. And again, that goes into your last section here on the exam form, and that gets you a point. So we add that up, and on the white page it'll be 20, and on the red it'll be 21, and that's what we have. So going back to here, we just want to make sure that there's a good understanding of the theory paper, 2 hours, multiple choice, 4 short written answers, and then tasting paper, 30 minutes, blind tasting, 2 wines, really focusing and understanding your SAT to be able to complete that. Okay? So that's it. Just a little synopsis of the WSET Level 3 awards in a wine exam.